Hey friends, it's Tuesday, time for our Tuesday night worship express. We are continuing our conversation with fruit of the Spirit, and we have all but two left to talk about. So far we have covered kindness, goodness, peace, joy, self-control, patience, and faithfulness. And tonight we are talking about gentleness. This one is one that I think our culture and our society might struggle with a little bit, because I think that for the most part, people would view the word gentle or gentleness as a form of weakness. And it is quite the opposite, quite the contrary. Here's a definition of gentleness: having great power, but choosing to yield it in a compassionate way for the benefit of others. And I have a few examples that I want to kind of share with you about the idea of what that means. It's only in the presence of strength that that gentleness is necessary, which is really interesting. From the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 29. Hi, Mom. Hi, whoever else is on. I can see a few people. Jesus said this: "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 says this, and this is Paul. He's writing his letters. This is from Paul. "By the meekness and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you. I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold when away." And that piece from Paul I resonate with that, because sometimes if I am in a situation where I feel like I need to have more to say or more strength or power behind my words, I get intimidated sometimes, and maybe I will pull away or draw away from a conflict or from a conversation. Even if it's not conflict, it's conversation that maybe I'm not feeling up to taking the task on to have this conversation. When I'm away from that, I will think of all kinds of things that I can say or that I could have said that might have proven a point. So sometimes when we are put in those situations against someone else with authority or power, sometimes we, meek or timid, might shy away from that. But I'm getting to a point that I want to make about that. So, like I said, in our culture today, a lot of people equate gentleness as a sign of weakness. But I want you to listen to this. This is from the book of John. And when we think about Jesus today and back in Bible times, we know the power that he has and that he had. And other people got to witness it. But think about the almighty power that he possesses and the fact that he is responding to people and to situations with pure gentleness. So let me read this to you. This is from the book of John, chapter 8, and we're starting at verse 2. "At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, 'Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?' They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, 'If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her.' Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, 'Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?' 'No one, sir,' she said. then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. Go now and leave your life of sin. Which to me, he's showing mercy and grace and forgiveness. And those are all things that God has placed on us to be able to share with people as well. Jesus chose to be gentle, and that is an expression of God's grace and love. So instead of throwing a stone, God sent his son, which I think is very profound. Here's another definition of gentleness. Gentleness is when you have the power to break something, but you choose to mend it. And that makes me think of relationships. Sometimes we can be in relationships or have situations come up in our lives that really would be a lot easier to walk away or to not deal with it. But we have the power to make it better. We have the power to mend something that might feel like it's broken. Some of you who have dogs might understand this too. So we have two dogs, Ellie and River. River is bigger than Ellie, and we had River for about 3 or 4 years before we got Ellie and before Ellie came into our lives. And so they are both fully grown, and River is still bigger than Ellie. And when we first brought Ellie into the home, she was a puppy, and I remember we used the word gentle a lot when talking to River about how she would play with Ellie. We would say gentle, gentle, and you might hear other owners of dogs use that with their dog too if they're playing with a child, or, dogs play with their mouths. So they're using their teeth, and what we have to teach them is to be gentle. And River probably could have taken Ellie down, taken her out several times with her strength and her power. She hasn't done that. She is being obedient, and she is understanding the word gentle. And so she is not that way with Ellie. And it reminds me of kind of the way that we should be practicing with God and our obedience to him and the understanding of the scripture and the word that he has for us. I think many times River might use a gruff bark or kind of a... I don't know what she does. She somehow communicates to Ellie that, I want to be left alone, but it could be a lot more powerful than it actually is. So that's one analogy. My other one that I want to kind of leave you with, and this is, I always have to end with a movie, right, or a song. Tonight it's a movie, and some of you may not know this, some of you might, but my all-time favorite movie is The Lion King, for lots of reasons. For the main reason is it's the idea of the father in this movie, Mufasa being the father to Simba, and the lesson that he leaves for him and reminds him about who he is. Remember who you are. There's one scene in this movie where little Simba is surrounded by hyenas, and these hyenas are no joke. They are out to get him. And so Simba tries to let out a roar, and it doesn't come out very strong. It's pretty laughable to these hyenas. In fact, they do laugh, and they say, "Do it again." And so he stands there for a minute, and he musters up some courage, and he does it again. But this time, he didn't realize this, but Mufasa was right behind him, and he roared simultaneously with Simba, and it was loud and thunderous and intimidating and scary, and it just reminds me that doing things alone, we are small and puny, but with God, our Father behind us, roaring for us, the enemy is scared. The enemy will run away, but alone, it's much different. And that's kind of the thought that I want to leave you with tonight. If you haven't seen The Lion King, I suggest watching it. Any of the versions are good. The cartoon version or the one that looks like it's got real animals in it. It came out a few years ago, and it's really good. Lots of lessons to be learned from The Lion King. So when our Father is behind us, empowering us and encouraging us and strengthening us, then, like I said, the enemy doesn't stand a chance. But Mufasa could have exuded all of his power and all of his strength on these hyenas, but he exhibited gentleness in a way that he made his point, he gave them a warning, but he didn't need to take it any further. And that shows self-control, which is also a fruit of our spirit. So, fruit of God's spirit. I want to leave you with this last scripture. Romans 8, chapter 8, verse 11 says this. And if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his spirit who lives in you. We can do anything through him who gives us strength. Philippians 4:13. Have a great night. Have a great week. School is starting soon. So let's get ready. Love you guys.